Japan, one of the world's leading countries, with high technological development, is also famous for its tightness and high reputation for clean streets. But when you walk on the street, you can see loads of wires above, which seems to be in conflict with this picture, or a form of visual pollution. Utility poles are often seen in rural areas, and are an expensive way to keep electrical wires and cables overhead. But why is such a large economy like Japan still commonly using utility poles that look a bit old-fashioned, even in its capital city, Tokyo? Japan has around 36 million utility poles, roughly the same number as sakura trees. Most are used for either electricity distribution or telecommunications. But many also support street lighting, traffic signals and signs, and advertisement. To understand why there are so many utility poles in Japan, we have to go back to the post-World War II era. Like many countries, Japan was rebuilding fast, and overhead power lines were the quickest and cheapest way to meet growing demand for electricity and communication. But the story actually starts even earlier. In 1869, Japan built its first utility pole for Morse telegraph signals between Tokyo and Yokohama. It was made of wood, typically Japanese cedar. Some of those old wooden poles are still standing today, even though they are no longer in use. In 1923, the first concrete pole went up in Hakodate. Unlike the round one we are used to now, it was rectangular and is still there. The city was prone to fires, so they needed something more durable, which led to the shift from wood to concrete. Utility poles were meant to be a temporary fix after World War II. But as Japan modernized and demand for electricity soared, they became a permanent part of the landscape. During Japan's economic boom in the 1960s, up to 500,000 utility poles were installed each year. As poles kept going up, concerns grew. Authorities started comparing Japan to cities like London, Paris, and Hong Kong, where almost all the power lines are underground, and began rethinking the overhead approach. As Japan is a highly developed country, many utility poles were built a long time ago. It would take a lot of time, resources, especially money, to replace them with underground cable. Overhead power lines are a lot more likely to get damaged, anywhere from several to even 10 times more compared to underground ones. They are especially vulnerable during strong winds, which can knock down power poles and cause even more damage. Utility poles on narrow sidewalks take up space, making it harder for people to walk safely. The government also wants to improve the view for tourists, getting rid of wires and poles to make the scenery better, especially for photos. Moreover, since 2021 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, when the nuclear power station exploded on 11 March, the destruction of windbreaks has led to more bird nesting on utility poles, causing power cuts. Building on these challenges, in 2021, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism announced the 8 phases of the Pole-Free Promotion Plan. This phase seeks to halt the constructions of new power poles and underground approximately 4,000 kilometers of existing overhead cables, with a strong focus on improving disaster resilience. They have been talking about putting power lines underground since the 1980s, but it is expensive. Removing poles from just 1 kilometer can cost over 500 million yen. It's not just about the cost. Some poles are on private land, with so many stakeholders involved, like city planners, utility companies, and local businesses. To speed up the removal of utility poles, the government has been actively educating the public through creative campaigns. One such initiative is No Utility Poles Day, held on the 10th of November. The number one represents a row of poles with the goal of reducing that to zero. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government has also held a Day Without Power Poles photo contest, now in its 4th year, with the themes such as landscapes where it is desirable or good to have no power poles. Interestingly, the government has even created free wallpapers for each calendar month. To promote the campaign and a map for tourists to find locations where they can take photos without poles in the background. Although the authorities sees removal of utility poles as beneficial for city planning, some people appreciate them as part of Japanese street culture. In 2014, an NGO posted 2 versions of the famous artwork Red Fuji, one in its original form and another with overhead wires added. Surprisingly, many online users found the latter one more interesting and aesthetically appealing. Actress Lanka Ishiyama, a self-proclaimed wire lover, has even been named a wire ambassador by the Japan Electric Wire and Cables Makers Association. She's fascinated by how power lines resemble living creatures, seeing utility poles and wires as symbols of the city of growth. In 2021, Nelima Art Museum held an exhibition showcasing the art of utility poles from the Meiji period to the present day. The exhibition highlighted how the sense of clutter represents an unaltered and nostalgic cityscape. Utility poles are also carefully depicted in the background art of Japanese animation, making them a widely recognized element of the country's urban landscape. Love or hate them, utility poles are more than just infrastructure in Japan. So, how is the street culture where you live?